I want you to do something for me right now.
Uh-oh.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
If you're driving, obviously keep your hands on the wheel, but otherwise I want you to just look at your hand.
Yeah.
Just look at them or think about them for a second. Flex your fingers.
Right.
Now, I want you to imagine if tomorrow morning you woke up and those exact same hands could kill.
Wow.
And I don't mean if you picked up a weapon. I mean if your body itself actually became the weapon.
Just completely intrinsic to your biology.
Exactly. Imagine you could generate 5,000 volts of electricity just by clenching your fist.
It's a terrifying thought.
It is.
Yes.
And imagine this didn't just happen to you. It happened to every single teenage girl on the entire planet.
Simultaneously.
Yes, all at once.
It's such an electrifying image to start with, honestly. And it immediately changes the calculus of literally every interaction you have.
Right. I mean, think about your commute to work. Think about, the guy who cut you off in traffic.
Or the boss who always talks over you in a meeting.
Yeah, or the politician on the news telling you what you can do with your body.
Exactly.
How does that dynamic change when you have actual lightning crackling under your fingernail?
It completely upends the board.
It does. And we aren't talking about some superhero movie here. We are talking about the complete ground-up deconstruction of human history.
Which is exactly what we're getting into today.
Yes, today we are taking a massive deep dive into the novel The Power by Naomi Alderman.
And I have to say, The Power is such a deceptive title.
It really is.
It sounds so simple, almost generic.
Like a self-help book or something.
Exactly. But the source material is anything but simple. It's a thriller, it's a piece of speculative fiction, but at its absolute core, it is a philosophical wrecking ball.
A wrecking ball is the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
I went into this reading expecting one thing.
Let me guess. A kind of girl power anthem.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a fun empowerment story. And I came out with something totally different.
It really pulls the rug out from under you.
It's unsettling. It's super provocative. And honestly, it made me look at our current world, our actual current news cycle with completely different eyes.
Well, that is the mark of truly great speculative fiction, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not really about the future at all. It's a funhouse mirror held up to the present.
Yeah.
And Alderman does something structurally with this book that I think we really need to unpack first because it frames everything else we're going to talk about today.
Oh, the meta layer.
Yes, the meta layer.
Because when you open the book, you are actually jumping straight into the action with the girls getting this power.
No, you're reading a letter.
Right. A letter from a guy named Neil Adam Arman.
And Neil is writing to a woman named Naomi.
Which is a fun little nod to the author herself.
Exactly. But here is the massive kicker for the listener to understand. Neil lives 5,000 years in the future.
5 millennia.
Right. And in his world, women are the dominant gender. Period.
Unquestionable.
They run the governments, they run the religions, the armies. Men are considered the gentler sex.
Physically weaker sex.
Exactly. So the book we are reading, the actual story of the girls getting electricity, is framed as a historical novel written by this fictional guy, Neil.
Which is wild.
He is writing about our time, the present day, but he calls our era the cataclysm.
That gave me chills when I read it.
Me too.
Because to us, it's just Tuesday.
Yeah.
But to him, looking back, it's the chaotic, bloody end of an ancient civilization.
It really shifts your perspective.
It does. But let's unpack the tone of these letters because it is just hilarious and biting satire.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Neil is, well, he's super nervous, isn't he?
He is incredibly anxious. He's writing to Naomi, who exists in this universe as a powerful, established female author, and he is basically begging her to even look at his manuscript.
Just hoping for a crumb of her attention.
Right. And he calls his book a hybrid of history and fiction because, as he puts it, no general reader can be bothered to wade through endless mounds of evidence.
He's explicitly saying he has to dumb down the history for the masses.
Exactly.
But what really cracked me up was his genuine fear about the content.
His whole premise.
Yeah, he is absolutely terrified that his book is too controversial.
Because of what he's suggesting.
Right. Because he's suggesting this radical, crazy, fringe conspiracy theory to his society that thousands of years ago, men actually used to rule the world.
Which, in his world, that idea is laughable. It's treated as biologically impossible.
Right. Why would they?
Exactly. Why would the gender with the weaker muscles and no internal electricity ever be in charge? It totally defies their logic.
So he's presenting this idea of a patriarchy as this shocking, fictionalized plot twist.
Yes. And Naomi's response to him is just a masterclass in condescension.
Oh man, it is so patronizing.
She writes back to him, and she actually calls him a saucy boy.
A saucy boy.
That phrase does so much heavy lifting.
It really does.
It immediately establishes the power dynamic. It's the exact kind of thing an older, powerful man might say to a young, naive woman in our real world.
Like, don't worry your pretty little head about it.
Precisely.
It honestly felt a little gross reading it, which I guess is the entire point.
It is the point. She treats him like a cute little hobbyist. Like, oh, isn't that adorable? You wrote a little book.
And she completely dismisses his core premise.
Completely. She tells him that if men actually had ruled the world, it surely would have been a kinder, more caring, more sexy place than the harsh world she currently lives in.
That line stopped me in my tracks.
Why is that?
Because we hear that exact same sentiment all the time today, right?
Oh, sure.
People say, well, if women ran the world, there would be no war. It would be a peaceful utopia.
And Alderman is flipping that assumption on its head right out of the gate. In this matriarchal future, they assume a patriarchy would have been a paradise.
Because the grass is always greener.
Right, but more importantly, it exposes a fundamental flaw in how humans think about power. The dominant group always justifies their position by pretending they are the natural leaders.
And that the alternative would just be chaos?
Exactly. Or they romanticize the oppressed group. Naomi thinks men ruling would be sexy and kind because she views men as these soft, emotional creatures.
She literally cannot imagine them being brutal warlords or dictators.
Because history is written by the victors,
Mhm.
Neil creates this frame where the future society has completely forgotten the violence of men.
Just as our real history often glosses over the realities of women.
Exactly. It sets the stage for our central mission today, the big question we need to answer.
Does power have a gender?
Right. Is the violence we see in our world biological? Is it just testosterone?
Or is it just what inevitably happens when you give any human being the power to hurt someone else?
The crux of it.
Okay, so let's go back to the cataclysm. Let's go back to the moment everything actually changed.
The countdown.
Yes, the book counts down the timeline, which adds this incredible sense of impending dread. 10 years to go. 5 years to go.
We know we are heading straight for a cliff.
We do. And the catalyst for all of this is purely biological.
It's not a new law being passed.
Yeah.
It's not an election. It's a mutation.
The scheme.
The skein. And this is crucial for you to visualize. The source material describes it as a strip of striated muscle that grows directly across the collarbones.
Like a completely new organ.
An organ of electricity, yes.
And it is not subtle at all. It's described as having this heavy physical presence.
Yeah.
The girls can physically feel it resting there.
They can, and Alderman's descriptions are very sensory. It's not just a clean superpower like in a comic book where you just point your finger and shoot a laser.
It's much more visceral than that.
Highly visceral. The text uses this almost archaic language at times. It says, "She cuppeth the lightning in her hand."
Cuppeth. That sounds so biblical.
It's very intentional. It elevates the biology to something mythic, almost divine. But physically, they describe feeling a prickle in the thumbs.
We're seeing actual needles of light moving under the skin.
Right. And the smell. Alderman is obsessed with the smell of it.
Yes. She mentions the smell constantly throughout the narrative.
Bitter oranges.
Bitter oranges or burning hair. Or ozone.
It grounds the fantasy so well in reality. If you were really discharging high voltage from your skin, it would smell like ozone.
It would literally smell like burning.
It makes the power feel incredibly dangerous, not just cool or flashy.
And it starts with the teenagers. Just teenage girls waking up with this. But then we find out they can actually pass it on.
They can wake it up.
Right. They can wake it up in older women.
That's the pandemic aspect of it. It spreads. A teenage girl can just touch her mother or her older sister or her teacher and physically jolt that dormant organ into life.
So suddenly the power balance shifts overnight, not just in high schools, but in homes,
In offices.
in nursing homes, everywhere.
And society's initial reaction is panic. There is a really disturbing part early on where parents and doctors try to actually cure it.
Oh, the curving. That was brutal to read.
They try to surgically remove the skein from these girls.
And this is where the real horror elements kick in, because the skein isn't just a lump of tissue.
No, it is deeply woven into the central nervous system.
You can't just cut it out like a tumor.
Trying to remove it causes immense, blinding pain.
Or severe brain damage. It leaves the girls physically and mentally broken.
It felt like a very direct metaphor for conversion therapy or really any historical attempt to medically fix something that is naturally part of a person.
Absolutely. It frames the electricity not as an illness, but as an integral, essential part of their identity.
To take it away is to mutilate them.
And this really drives the conflict forward.
Because once the girls realize that the world literally wants to cut this power out of their chests, they stop asking for permission to keep it.
They realize they have to fight.
They start fighting to protect their own bodies.
And then, just to throw a massive can of gasoline on the fire, we get glitter.
Ah, yes. The drug.
Because, of course, human beings will turn literally anything into a recreational substance. Tell us a bit about glitter.
It's a designer drug that specifically enhances the conductivity of the skin. It metabolizes directly through the skin.
And again, the smells.
Right. The user's sweat starts to smell like battery acid and peppery radish.
So specific.
But the effect is that it makes the electricity much stronger, way more volatile, and much easier to discharge.
It creates this whole underground black market economy.
And it accelerates the social chaos. Because now you have young girls who are not just powerful, but hypercharged and potentially very unstable.
It's the ultimate chaotic variable. But amidst all this global chaos, there is a very structured underlying philosophy that the book presents.
Yes. Neil, the future writer, uses a metaphor that I think defines the entire narrative structure. The tree.
Let me quote it. The shape of power is always the same. It is the shape of a tree.
Let's really linger on this for a second because it's vital. He writes root to tip, central trunk branching and rebranching.
He's connecting the literal physical shape of lightning,
which looks exactly like a branching tree,
to the human nervous system.
And then ultimately to the structure of human society.
So the trunk of the tree is the government, the king, the palace.
Exactly. The central authority is the trunk. The thicker branches are the regional powers, the institutions, and the tiny tips of the twigs at the very end are the individual people.
Okay, I follow.
So in a traditional human hierarchy, power flows from the trunk out to the twigs. The king commands the duke commands the army controls the peasant.
But the introduction of this electricity totally flips that flow of power.
It puts the ultimate lethal force naturally in the tips of the twigs. Every individual girl on the street is now a lethal weapon.
Neil writes, when the people change, the palace cannot hold. That is a terrifying thought for literally any government establishment.
Because if every single citizen has a biological nuclear weapon in their pocket, or in this case, their hands, the government ceases to have a monopoly on violence.
And that monopoly is what keeps governments in charge.
Exactly. That is why the palace crumbles. It's not some top-down, organized political revolution.
It's a bottom-up biological shift.
It makes the old structures obsolete instantly. The entire tree is turned upside down overnight.
So the tree is shaking violently. The roots are coming up. Let's talk about the actual people living through this massive earthquake.
We get several distinct perspectives.
Yes. Alderman gives us 4 main characters, and their paths are so radically different. We have Roxy, Allie, Margot, and Tunda.
4 completely different relationships with power.
Let's start with the muscle. Let's talk about Roxy.
Roxy is a fascinating character. She is the teenage daughter of a notorious London mob boss, Bernie Monk.
So she is born right into a world of organized violence.
She is, but she's always been kept on the sidelines, treated as secondary, simply because she's a girl.
Until the home invasion.
Yes.
This scene, man, it is so cinematic. It plays out like a gritty British gangster movie, but way, way darker.
It really establishes her entire psychological profile moving forward. 2 rival hitmen break into her house to kill her mother.
And Roxy is hiding.
Roxy is hiding in a cupboard. And the text makes this incredibly dark, subtle note that she already knows exactly how to unlock the cupboard from the inside because she's been locked in it before.
Which immediately implies a childhood full of neglect or abuse right off the bat.
Precisely. She isn't sheltered. So she breaks out of the cupboard to help her mother. She's terrified, but the adrenaline hits her system and the power violently manifests.
She just unleashes it.
She fries one of the attackers. It's this moment of absolute raw physical strength. Suddenly, this teenage girl is vastly stronger than these grown professional killers.
But it's ultimately a tragedy.
It is, because she's too late. She incapacitates the attacker, but her mother still dies in front of her.
And that singular failure defines her entire arc.
She becomes completely obsessed with strength. She has more raw electrical power than almost anyone else in the book. She's described as a natural right, but she couldn't save the one person she truly loved.
So she becomes the soldier.
Yes.
She works for her dad's criminal empire, then eventually strikes out for herself. She isn't interested in the grand politics or the religious movements initially.
Not at all.
She just wants to be the biggest, baddest thing in the room so no one can ever hurt her again.
She represents the pure physical application of power, the sheer threat of violence.
But then we have Allie. And Allie is where things get super metaphysical.
Allie's story is the one that really messes with your head.
It really did. She starts as a vulnerable foster kid in the American South, living with this couple, the Montgomery Taylors.
And they are just comprehensively evil.
Religious fanatics, extremely abusive.
It's horrific, systemic abuse. And in that total isolation, Allie develops a voice in her head.
Now, I want to challenge you on this a bit, based on the text.
Sure.
Is the voice actually God? Is it just a manifestation of her trauma? Is she schizophrenic? The book seems to purposefully walk a tightrope here.
That ambiguity is absolutely the point. A secular psychologist would look at Allie's situation and say, okay, this is a clear dissociation.
Right, a coping mechanism.
She created an internal protector personality to survive severe trauma. But within the internal logic of the speculative universe, the voice actually gives her specific information she shouldn't have.
It guides her strategically.
Very strategic.
There is that pivotal moment where she finally kills her foster father. And she doesn't just lash out blindly like Roxy did.
No, it feels entirely different.
It's an execution.
It is a cold execution. She tests her power carefully. She stops his heart with a precise jolt, and the voice immediately tells her what to do next.
It tells her to run.
It tells her to run, but specifically to run toward a brand new destiny.
She ends up reinventing herself. She renames herself Mother Eve.
And this is where she becomes an absolute genius of marketing and mass manipulation.
She really does. She realizes that just having electricity in your hands isn't enough to change the world.
You need a narrative.
You need a story.
Right. She fundamentally understands that people don't blindly follow lightning. They follow meaning. They follow faith.
So she decides to basically rewrite Christianity from the ground up.
Exactly.
She takes the existing theological texts and just flips the genders entirely.
She says God is a mother.
Right.
And she doesn't actually deny Jesus as a historical figure.
But she diminishes him.
Yeah, she says the time of the Gospels is over, and we are now in a completely new age, the age of the mother.
And to back this up, she performs actual miracles. She heals people.
Well, let's look closer at those miracles. She uses her fine-tuned electrical control to manipulate human nerves.
Right. It's physiological.
She can stimulate deadened muscles to help someone walk again, or temporarily deaden chronic pain. It's a purely biological application of her mutation, but she frames it to the masses as divine intervention.
She tells the crowds, God has given you this power.
Which is such a brilliant tactical move, because if it's just a random genetic mutation, it's scary, it's medical.
But if it's a gift from God, it's a holy mandate.
Exactly. The voice in her head tells her, the only way you're safe is if you own it.
And she interprets own it as owning the narrative itself.
She has to literally become the Messiah to guarantee her own survival. So if Roxy is the soldier, Ally is the prophet. She provides the overarching moral justification for the violent revolution.
Which perfectly leads us to the politician, Margot.
Margot is arguably the most familiar character to us as modern readers.
She feels very real. She's a middle-aged woman in a tailored suit, a local mayor just trying to keep the lights on in our city and get reelected.
I identified with her baseline anxiety so much in the beginning. She's desperately trying to hide her power from the public.
There is that incredibly tense scene where the government mandates testing for all officials.
Yes, they're bringing in medical machines to detect the skein in government employees.
And Margot is a hidden positive. She has the power, but she's hiding it because she knows instantly it would end her political career.
The tension in that testing room scene is palpable. You are sweating with her. She has to learn to forcefully suppress her internal charge just to pass the machine's tests.
But then shortly after, her entire mindset shifts. She has this closed-door meeting with Daniel Dandon, who is a male political rival.
And he is awful. He's condescending, he's constantly mansplaining, he's interrupting her.
And she has this sudden revelation while looking at him.
She looks across the desk at him and realizes, I could kill you.
Not metaphorically.
No, physically. She realizes she could reach across the desk and instantly stop his heart before his security detail could even open the door.
She has that thought. The power to hurt is a kind of wealth.
That single line is the core thesis of her entire character. She realizes that all traditional political authority,
The laws, the titles, the podium.
all of it is ultimately backed by the implicit threat of physical force. And right now, in this room, she possesses the superior force.
And she doesn't even have to actually kill him to feel that wealth.
Just knowing she can changes everything about her demeanor. It changes how she speaks to him, how she holds herself.
But Margot doesn't just rely on her own personal power. She scales it up. She weaponizes the younger girls.
We have to talk about the North Star camps.
Because this is some truly Machiavellian political maneuvering.
It is brilliant, cynical politics. She sees that young girls everywhere are losing control, accidentally causing fires, hurting people.
The general public is terrified.
So she publicly proposes training camps. She frames the whole initiative entirely around public safety.
She says something like, "We need to teach our daughters to control this gift, just like we teach them to safely drive a car."
It sounds so incredibly reasonable. Like, think of the children.
Right. It's a massive Trojan horse.
She isn't building schools. She's building military barracks.
She's organizing these raw teenagers into structured units.
She is creating a private paramilitary force that is completely loyal to her. And later in the narrative, she actually monetizes it.
She rents these highly trained, lethal girls out as mercenaries to fight in foreign wars.
For massive profit. So she takes a spontaneous biological change and seamlessly turns it into the new military-industrial complex.
Exactly. Margot shows how the state inherently adapts to survive. The state doesn't actually care about gender. The state only cares about maintaining power.
Margot totally co-opts the grassroots revolution just to become the new establishment.
And while all these powerful women are rising up, there is one guy carefully watching it all happen. Tunde.
Tunde is our eyes and ears on the ground. He's a young journalism student based in Nigeria.
And he becomes the chronicler of the era.
He starts off just casually filming things on his phone, right? He catches the early protests in Delhi.
The Day of the Girls.
Yes. He physically witnesses the exact tipping point. The moment when the women in the street realize they can easily overwhelm the armed police.
He captures the raw footage that eventually goes globally viral. But his personal arc is really about the fear shift.
This is something I think every woman listening understands completely instinctively, but for Tunde, it's a profound shock to his system.
He talks about just walking down the street one evening and seeing a random group of teenage girls laughing on a corner, and his stomach drops.
He purposefully crosses the street to avoid them. He keeps his head down. He realizes for the first time in his life that his physical safety in public is no longer guaranteed.
He is suddenly experiencing the constant background radiation of fear that women have lived with for millennia.
There is a very specific scene in Riyadh that really brings this dynamic home. He's in a hotel room with a woman.
And usually in that kind of setting, a private hotel room in a very conservative country, the power dynamic overwhelmingly favors the man.
But inside that sealed room, raw biology trumps the external law. The woman calmly shows him her electrical power.
She plays with him.
She implicitly threatens him. It's a complete, chilling inversion of the traditional male gaze. He realizes that no matter what the strict laws outside say, inside that room, he is entirely at her mercy.
He essentially becomes the damsel in distress of the story.
He really does. He spends a significant portion of the book constantly needing to be rescued by Roxy or protected by other powerful women.
And that's a crucial point for his character development. He learns that just being a quote-unquote good guy or an ally doesn't automatically protect him.
To the feral women with the power, he is just a man. He is a target by default.
It's a terrifying realization of collective guilt being assigned to him.
So we have our main cast. The entire world is turning completely upside down. But I think for the first half of the book, it feels, well, kind of good.
Like actual justice is finally being served.
Right. Women are successfully fighting back against actual rapists and longtime abusers. As a reader, you find yourself cheering.
But that is the trap.
Alderman totally seduces you. She wants you to pump your fist and say, yeah, get him.
But then she very slowly turns the dial. She pushes the righteous justice into revenge.
And then revenge rots into pure tyranny.
This brings us to the segment the outline calls the descent. From liberation to tyranny. And we have to talk about Besapara.
Besapara, the new name for the country of Moldova. Tatiana Moskalev, who is the wife of the former male leader, violently takes over.
And she creates what she calls a female republic.
And let's be clear, it is not the nurturing, peaceful, sexy utopia that Naomi predicted in those intro letters.
Not even remotely close. It is a dark mirror image of the absolute worst patriarchal dictatorships in human history.
But the specific details are what make it so chilling to read. Tatiana starts implementing systemic laws, for example, forbidding men from driving cars.
And what's her stated justification for that?
She publicly claims it's for their own safety. She says men are simply too hormonal, too aggressive, and too emotional to safely operate heavy machinery.
That's specific language. We've heard that before.
It is the exact rhetoric used historically to stop women from driving in places like Saudi Arabia or from voting in the West.
They are too emotional.
Tatiana flips the historical script perfectly.
And the curfews. She dictates that men need a designated female guardian just to travel outside their homes.
Again, directly mirroring real-world guardianship laws in some conservative countries. The book forces you to look at these harsh restrictions and say, wow, this is horrific and unjust.
And then you immediately realize, wait a minute, this is just our actual world with the pronouns swapped.
Exactly. If you agree it's tyranny when it happens to men, you have to admit it's always been tyranny when it happens to women.
But it gets much darker than just oppressive laws. We have to talk about the physical violence.
Tunde's perspective gets very grim here.
Tunde witnesses a public ritual in Besapara.
Honestly, I had to put the book down for a second to process it.
The sacrifice scene.
Yeah. A blind woman who has positioned herself as a local religious figure leads a massive mob, and they have a captive man.
It's a brutal, drawn-out, ritualistic execution. They use their collective electricity to slowly torture and kill him in public.
And it's explicitly framed as a religious cleansing, tying right back to Mother Eve's new ideology.
The message is clear. We are the righteous victors, you are the sinful victim.
And we also see widespread sexual violence. The book uses this specific, chilling term, breaking men.
It heavily implies systematic rape and profound psychological humiliation.
It's truly stomach-turning to read. But Alderman is making a very specific, necessary point here.
She is completely rejecting the comforting idea that women are naturally better or more moral leaders.
She's saying that unchecked power itself is the corruptor. If you give any group of human beings absolute, unassailable physical dominance, a certain percentage of them will inevitably become sadists.
Some of them will become rapists.
It absolutely doesn't matter what chromosomes they have. Power corrupts.
Which naturally leads to a massive cultural backlash. We have to discuss the Urban Docs movement.
Urban Docs is a fascinating element because he feels so incredibly ripped from today's headlines. He is an anonymous, charismatic online voice.
He runs these massive, encrypted dark web forums exclusively for angry men.
He's basically an extreme incel leader, or a men's rights activist taken to the absolute logical extreme.
He calls women bitches and skin cunts. He preaches pure, unadulterated hate.
He does. He is a vile character. But here is the brilliant nuance that Alderman slips into the narrative. Tunde is reading these toxic forums, and he realizes something horrifying.
Urban Docs isn't actually lying about the facts on the ground.
Right. Urban Doc says to his followers, they want to enslave us. They want to kill us in the streets.
And Tunde looks out his window at the reality of Bisapara and thinks, God, he's actually right.
That is a terrifying moment for the reader. The deranged conspiracy theory has become the documented reality.
It shows exactly how radicalization works in real time.
Urban Docs takes a very legitimate fear, the genuine rational fear men have of this new lethal female power, and he expertly weaponizes it into violent hatred.
Young men flock to him in droves because he is literally the only public figure acknowledging their daily terror.
It's a flawless parallel to how political extremism aggressively recruits disaffected young men in our actual world.
So, as we get closer to year zero, the dramatic end of the countdown timeline, everything converges. The entire world order is spiraling out of control.
Tatiana is going completely mad, isolated in her presidential palace.
Ali is pulling strings, deliberately manipulating global geopolitics to create maximum chaos.
Ali explicitly wants to turn the world upside down. She truly believes the only way to build a pure new world is to completely and violently destroy the old one first.
She isn't interested in steady political reform. She actively wants an apocalypse.
And amidst all this macro-level destruction, there is a very grounded scene in the woods that brings our core characters crashing together.
Tunde is running for his life through a war zone. Roxy happens to be there, and they suddenly run into a feral woman.
This scene is pivotal because it emphasizes that all semblance of civilization has fully collapsed. It's no longer just women versus men.
It's everyone versus everyone. Pure anarchy.
The raw physical power has completely stripped away the social contract. Roxy has to step in and save Tunde.
Not because she's a noble hero.
No, simply because she's the only one physically strong enough to fight back against the chaos.
And then we get the betrayals. The betrayals in the climax broke my heart. Margot, the calculating politician, ultimately betrays her own teenage daughter.
Jose. Poor Jose. She's the one girl in the story who just can't get her power to work reliably.
She's a profound disappointment to her mother.
And Margot. While Margot clearly loves her newfound political power significantly more than she loves her own daughter, she throws her under the bus.
But the even bigger, more shocking betrayal involves Allie and her dark past.
Mrs. Williams comes back.
The monstrously abusive foster mother from the very beginning. She reappears out of nowhere and tries to secretly blackmail Allie.
She corners her and says, "I know who you really are. I pulled strings and made your old police files disappear."
She wants to ride the coattails of the global goddess she used to abuse.
And Allie? Well, Mother Eve does not negotiate with blackmailers.
Allie realizes she simply cannot afford to have a loose end walking around.
To maintain her unquestioned status as a living deity, she has to definitively purge her human past.
So she violently kills the only link to her previous identity.
It confirms, once and for all, that her holy revolution is built entirely on secrets, murders, and lies, just like the old patriarchal regime she overthrew.
Which brings us, ultimately, to the absolute thematic core of the book. The big question we started this whole discussion with: does power actually have a gender?
And the book, looking at all the evidence, screens a resounding no.
It's deeply tragic, isn't it?
It really is. Neil's final letter at the very end of the book, after the main narrative concludes, perfectly sums it up. He says, "Gender is a shell game."
A shell game. That's a classic con artist trick.
Exactly. You keep frantically looking under the different shells to find the inherent, immutable nature of man or woman.
Is man naturally the violent warrior?
Yeah.
Is woman inherently the peaceful nurturer?
And Neil essentially says the shells are completely empty. There is no inherent nature based on gender.
There is only the cold logic of power.
He writes, power travels in the same manner. It has a logic to it.
That line haunts me. It suggests that power is almost like a virus.
It has its own internal programming. It always seeks to expand its reach. It always seeks to control others.
So when men historically had the physical advantage, the sheer muscular ability to inflict pain, they built the patriarchy to formally justify and protect it.
And when women suddenly gain that superior ability in the novel, they don't sit down and build a peaceful circle of holding hands. They build the matriarchy.
They build the exact same towering structure, just using different bricks.
So in this world, biology strictly dictates sociology.
Precisely. If you can effortlessly kill a rival with a mere touch, you eventually create a sprawling religion that says God specifically wants you to kill with a touch.
You create rigid legal codes that protect your exclusive right to do so. Margot's chilling internal monologue right at the end is just, burn it all down.
She willingly starts a global catastrophic war, not to save women, but simply to secure her own supreme position on the ashes.
And that devastating war directly leads to the cataclysm, the nuclear or chemical destruction that forcibly sends human civilization back to the Stone Age, eventually leading to Neil's matriarchal future.
And this is exactly where we have to talk about the artifacts. Kind of skipped over them earlier, but scattered throughout the book, there are these detailed illustrations of ancient artifacts that Neil is academically analyzing.
These were easily my favorite part of the reading experience. It's like a running puzzle for the reader to solve.
It is. We see a hand-drawn picture of a gold torque, or a thick necklace. And Neil writes a very serious academic caption explaining that this was clearly a vital religious object used by ancient high priestesses to focus their electrical energy.
But we as modern readers look at it and realize instantly it's just a chunky piece of jewelry.
Or there's a picture of a sleek, rectangular communication device.
Which is very clearly an iPhone with a cracked screen.
Right. And he interprets its function completely wrong. But the most culturally telling one is definitely the statue of the serving boy.
This specific artifact sums up the entire overarching satire of the book. It's a classical statue of a young, fit man, probably a respected soldier or an Olympic athlete from our era.
But Neil looks at it through his heavily ingrained matriarchal bias.
He sees a man who he assumes is the weaker sex, and automatically assumes he must be a lowly servant.
He confidently interprets the statue as a sex worker or a submissive figure offering his body to a dominant woman.
He literally cannot perceive the past clearly because his brain cannot even conceptualize a world where men were powerful and respected.
He simply assumes the cataclysm happened because men foolishly tried to violently rise up and were rightfully, justly put down by the superior women.
He seamlessly justifies the total destruction of our civilization by implicitly blaming the male victims.
Which perfectly mirrors how certain historians or evolutionary psychologists in our real world confidently argue that women are naturally submissive or meant for domestic roles.
Neil inadvertently proves that whoever holds the power will always project their current social structures backwards onto the past to justify the present.
So we've gone on quite a journey today. We've gone from a single tiny biological spark in a teenage girl's collarbone to the absolute total destruction of modern civilization.
And the subsequent rise of a new, equally oppressive, equally violent civilization in its place.
It's an endless cycle. The metaphorical tree just keeps growing, the roots and branches occasionally flipping positions, but the brutal shape remains exactly the same.
It's a very heavy warning. It tells us point blank that we can't just passively wait for some magical biological miracle to fix the structural inequalities of the world.
Simply saying if only women were in charge isn't actually the answer at all.
No, it isn't. The real answer is much, much harder. It's about actively dismantling the core concept of domination itself, not just changing the gender of the person holding the whip.
Before we sign off today, I want to circle back to the voice in Allie's head one last time. Because right at the very end of the narrative, it says something to Ally that feels like the ultimate key to the whole philosophical puzzle.
Yes, that final theological debate. Allie is desperately trying to figure out the grand theology of all this bloodshed. And the voice asks her a direct question. Who's the serpent and who's the Holy Mother?
And Allie realizes she doesn't actually know.
And the voice calmly tells her, all of these questions are the wrong question.
The wrong question. That phrase really stuck with me long after I closed the book.
The voice is profoundly suggesting that the entire binary framework, good versus evil, man versus woman, victim versus oppressor, is itself the trap.
As long as we are endlessly fighting over who should rule, we are asking the fundamentally wrong question.
The grand tragedy of the power isn't that the gender roles aggressively flipped. The true tragedy is that despite the massive world-ending flip, the underlying structures of oppression remained exactly the same.
We didn't change the game. We just forcibly changed the players.
We didn't change the game, just the players. That is incredibly bleak, but deeply necessary to hear.
It effectively puts the ultimate responsibility right back on us, the readers.
Because we don't have the skein. We don't have magic electricity to force a change.
But we do have the intellectual ability to clearly recognize exactly how power works in our real lives.
And maybe, just maybe, if we're aware of it, we can actually try to change the fundamental shape of the tree before it eventually crushes us all.
That is definitely a lot to chew on. I know I'm going to be looking at my own hands very differently for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I hope you will too. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into The Power by Naomi Alderman.
It's been an absolute pleasure to discuss it.
We'll see you next time.